Hi, I'm Darlene Panzera with Aspiring Writer Academy, and today we have Jeri Stockdale with us, and she just finished publishing her Love's Promises series. Her first book was Outspoken Love, and then Gracious Love, and then her third was Courageous Love. And so here's her books right here. And I've known Jeri for quite a long time, and we first met at a writers' conference. We traveled about 2 hours to get there each. We didn't go together. And I walked in with a friend, and she walked in with a friend, and it just so happened that we were all walking into the door of this conference at the exact same time. And then we got to talking and realized that we're from the same, area, the same town. And so it was such a coincidence that we were all local. And then we met a few other people that were also from our area. And then we started our own small writers group that met on a weekly basis. And then we decided we were going to maybe put together an anthology together. And so we met every 2 weeks working on our stories for 2 years. And we put together an anthology called Christmas of Hope. And then Jeri went on to then now publish her 3 novella series here with Winged Publications. So we're really excited to have her today and talk about her experience as a writer and hear what she has learned.
Thank you, Darlene.
So Jeri, what inspired you to be a writer?
Really, I've always liked to write. From the time I learned that you could put words together and actually make a story, that was pretty exciting to me. And so I journaled for years, and I always had a desire to be a writer, but I didn't know how to make that happen. And probably, the major turning point was when a friend of mine, Beverly Basile, she and I were in a homeschool co-op together. And one day we're walking along, and she says, "Jeri, there's a writers' conference over in Seattle." And I whipped my head around and I said, "How did you know I wanted to be a writer?" And she said, "I didn't." She said, "I prayed and asked God to show me who I should ask." And that just really touched my heart. And so we ended up going to this writers conference and not knowing anything. And we even signed up to see an editor, which was crazy because we knew nothing.
You didn't have a story.
We didn't have
time.
anything, And he was so kind. They were actually group meetings. And so we were in the hallway. He goes, "Come on in,"
Right.
And so we went in, and it was good because we could learn by listening to everybody else. And so that was the door that opened, because the writers' conferences, that's really what's made the difference in networking with other authors and with editors and publishers, and just learning and growing at a much faster rate than if you try to do it all on your own.
Right. So what draws you towards writing Christian historical romance?
It's probably because that's what I read most. I will read a wide variety, but I always kind of go back to that. That's my comfortable home place. I like to, I enjoy reading something for the story, but I also like picking up the different pieces of history. And I feel like I've learned more through historical romance or historical fiction than if I got a history book out and just tried to read that. So, and lots of times I'll be reading something and it'll cause me to do some research to see, oh, I didn't know about that, and find out more. So
I write a lot of contemporary novels, and I just recently started writing some historical novels myself, and I really like going to a historical place, and learning the history about that area or that building or that time period or a specific event that happened, in this place. And lots of times that will trigger so many story ideas.
Yeah.
And so I really love being able to travel to and research different specific events that you don't hear about in the history books, and things that happened, all the local lore and legends and stories of what have happened regionally.
Yeah, I agree. I like that too.
So what is the biggest lesson you've learned so far when creating a story?
I think that I need to look at characters more deeply. I will get an idea for a character, I'll get an idea for the plot, and sometimes I want to run with it too quickly. And I'll find that as I'm writing, I have to stop and ask myself, well, what would this person do, based on their own character? And then that kind of tells me that I haven't gone deep enough with the characters. So
right. When I first started writing, you just create a character. You get their physical description, maybe some personality traits, but then I think the more we learn, and we're always still learning, you have to develop their backstory and some of their backstory wounds. What happened to this person to give them the motivation to think and feel this way and act this way now in the current story. And I know that's what I've had to learn a lot, is how to go deeper, how to go deeper into character all the time, and how that backstory relates to the plot at hand, because I also used to just give them a backstory that just didn't even matter to what they're going through now, but you need to relate it to the plot.
Yeah.
So always learning more and more and how to go deeper and deeper with characters. So do you use a plot map? How do you plot your stories?
Well, so since you, Darlene, and I were in the same, Darlene has been my mentor in writing, and we did a workshop called From Start to Finish, which she mentioned before, which she's used a lot of that information for her Aspiring Writers Academy too. So, but through the different things that I've read, I mean, I've done workshops and I've read crafting books and taken lots of notes, and from Darlene's teaching, I start with a plot sketch that is the same one that's on the Academy website. And I use that to get the basic story structure. I'll write a synopsis, and that's usually about 2 to 3 pages. Typically, I think when you put in a proposal, well, it varies on the publisher, but they might want just a 1-page synopsis. So, but 2 to 3 kind of helps me get the full story out. And then it's easy later. I can take that and trim it down to 1 page. But I know there's some authors that I've heard of, some writing up to 60 pages or something for their synopsis. So it's whatever works for the person. And so, I'll take that and I do the character charts for each of my main characters and villain and things like that. And then I'll also, I don't know, there's a way to do, like, for subplots, to do sticky notes and kind of a timeline type of thing. So that's helpful because, you've got your main story and then you've got your subplots that are impacting your story, and the main story is impacting them. And so then I go to scene and sequel cards, and I use index cards to do that. And so that you do that with each scene through the book. And I always seem to know at the beginning more. I can do more detailed cards in the beginning. I know where I'm going. And then it seems harder as I'm getting...
It gets a little more vague.
Yeah, it gets more vague. That's the way to put it.
Don't know how it's going to quite end yet.
Yeah. And what I found that I like to do is when I start actually doing the writing, I will have the chapters. I'll have like chapter 1 and chapter 2, and on, and then I'll go back and I'll put like the scene and sequel at the beginning of that chapter, so I can read that before I start writing that particular thing. Right. And that has worked for me.
And I use poster boards a lot, where you put the sticky notes on the poster board, and then you can move things around and to get the general plot.
Yeah.
As you're brainstorming, and then all the things that you just mentioned help flesh that out, as you go. So, Jeri, how did you find your current publisher for the 3 novellas?
Well, it's kind of a story in itself because Outspoken Love, this one was actually written to be part of an anthology on the topic of suffrage, the suffrage movement, suffragette brides. And we put in a proposal with Barber Publishing for that. They've done many series of brides books over the years, and Darlene has several now with them. But at the point that we put in the proposal, I didn't have the story done, but she encouraged me to go ahead and write it because I was the new person in the group of writers, and so I didn't really know how long it was going to take me. And so that was a good thing to do. But what happened was, like so many publishing companies, they made some major changes, and they put a pause on all their bride collections. And so our proposal was languishing for about 3 years, I think.
It was a long time.
Yeah, and so... and I had the story done, and I had it polished, and it was ready to go. And so anyway, Darlene encouraged me to go ahead and try to find a different publisher for it, because all we were hearing was like crickets, it's just very quiet. And anyway, so because it was a novella, that was a different challenge because not all publishers will take novellas. They want them a longer length. And so Winged Publications was honestly, I think it was the only one I found that would take a shorter length story. Yeah. And so I put a proposal together and sent that to her, and Cynthia Hickey is the editor and publisher, and it's a small press. And I heard back right away. But what she said is this a standalone book? Or is this a series?
Yeah.
Or could it be a series? Series sell better than standalones. And I'm going, oh my goodness.
Right. She called me up and she's like, what do I do? And it's like, make it a series. Come up with 2 other story ideas really fast.
Yeah, and thankfully, my characters in my first story, I really liked my characters, and I could see where they had room to grow, and I could take the side characters and give them a story of their own. And so I emailed back and said, this could be a series. Right? I could do this.
We could do this.
And so then I got the contract, and so then she gave me... She wanted to know if I could get them done within all 3 within a year. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. But the first one was ready to go. And so that was not an issue. The second one, I had that fleshed out really well. And Darlene and I brainstormed and made that a more detailed... I had a better... idea going in what I was going to do with that one, and so it only took me 4 months for that one, so that was a record time for me. And but then the third one was supposed to be done like the end of December last year, and that was only like 4 months and into the holidays, and needing somebody to edit and do these other things. That was hard, and I tried to do it, but what happened was I felt so rushed that I didn't flesh out the story well enough for that one. And so, I at the time that I was talking with my publisher, and I was saying, so is there some wiggle room in the deadline? And she said yes. And so, it wasn't just the holidays, but I ended up sick a couple of times. And so, anyway, it ended up taking 8 months to do that story. And it wasn't until I knew something was off, but it wasn't until having someone else read it. It was Darlene that did the editing, and she saw what I couldn't see because I was too close to it, and that I had not done nearly as much with the subplots and the characters that needed to surround the main characters. And so, it meant going back and doing a lot of rewrites, but I was much happier with the finished
It was
product.
a much stronger story in the end.
Yes. So I did not want to put in something that I could not feel good about,
Right.
So anyway.
So emotionally wise, we're struggling so much to learn the craft of writing, and we have that dream in our heads of having a published book that we hold in our hands for so long. It's the ultimate dream. How did it feel to finally get that 3 novella contract?
It feels
and
great.
hold your books in your hand. And I know a lot of authors online on social media, it's like they have the opening of the box and seeing the print copies for the first time, and it doesn't get old. Every time you open that box and hold up your copies, and it's like, this is my book, because we put so much time and energy and emotion into writing these stories, and it takes a long time. It's not an easy feat. And then it's like the final culmination of such a long time of writing and dreaming and struggling to get the stories down. And so just how is that rush?
It's our babies, and protecting our babies and stuff. So it takes a while, especially like if you're just starting to write, to be able to tell yourself, I'm a writer. I'm a writer, and tell yourself that, and get used to the idea that yes, if you're writing, you're a writer.
You're a writer.
Yeah, and so to be published, lots of times, I've had people walk up to me and talk to me that I didn't even know that they knew that I was writing. And I've had people in my church that have gone and gotten my books, and I didn't know that they were reading them, and so it's a really good feeling. And then to have the feedback from them, and that they were encouraged by the story, and to learn about it. And just one quick little story. There's this older lady in our church who has been on the missions committee forever, and she usually reads mission-related stories. It's a biography or something like that. And she said to me, I guess I should really buy your book. She goes, I don't normally read that kind of book. But she went ahead and she bought it. And afterwards she goes, well, it was okay. And she goes, I guess I should read your second book. And so she bought my second book. I'm thinking, I don't know why she's kind of, this isn't her genre. And it was interesting because then she bought the third one when it came out. And just last week,
you must have hooked her in.
She tells me, she goes, I really liked reading a series because you kind of get to move along with these characters and get to know them better. And so that just was a blessing to me. And she's shared them. She takes the books and she shares them with other people and stuff. So anyway, it's kind of hilarious.
So what do you think? What did writing this 3 novella series back to back teach you? Did you learn anything as a writer, or what would you do differently next time, knowing now how much time it took you to write the whole series?
I think it's one of the hard things is figuring out what would be a reasonable deadline, especially if you're just getting started.
Because the publisher always asks you, how long do you think it's going to take you? And you're kind of like, unless you know your own process. But even knowing your process, things come up. There's the holidays. Sometimes you get sickness, or there's a death in the family or something like that. And so it's nice to have some little wiggle room, but you don't always have it. And so it is hard, I think. Trying to balance that.
I think I'm actually very thankful to have been with a small press. If it had been a larger publishing house, that would have been very difficult. And I try to balance things because I've got my family, and they're very important to me, and so it's not like I can shut myself away for 13 hours a day to write, because there's other things in life too. So I love the saying that it'd be nice to have like 3 finished manuscripts in your drawer that you can pull out and just say ta-da.
I'll just polish them off real quick.
So it's going to be a different experience for everybody,
Right.
just depending on the way they've gone with things. But yeah, I think things turned out well. I find I don't like that a lot of pressure on me for the deadline stuff. I think the pressure versus the creativity can become an issue. So, but also a deadline will drive you to
Right,
do
a
more.
drive. Yeah, with a deadline, you're going to aim for that, and it'll push you to
Right.
write faster.
Right.
And in the publishing market, they do want you to write fast. So we got to
Yeah.
kind of learn to how can we
Yeah.
write faster without losing our sanity.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so now let's talk about each of your novellas. What inspired book one, Outspoken Love, and what is it about?
Well, we already know that I was given a subject, which was the suffragette brides. And so to find a story to go with that, I looked at the Seattle area. So each of these takes place in Seattle, 1910s, and suffragette era. And so in this one, Anna is a young woman who goes to rescue her friend, and they end up involved in the suffragette movement. And it wasn't something that they had thought they would do, but this becomes something that's important to her, and she learns how to speak out on things that truly matter to her. So, and of course, there's a love interest, Daniel, who's a reporter, and yeah, so that's kind of where the romance comes in. So.
And then we have book two, Gracious Love.
And this one is Nellie and Jacob are in this one. Nellie is Anna's sister, and she has a different perspective on the women's role in life. And honestly, I realized that really every generation of women, I think we kind of struggle to find what our place in the world is. And I think that comes through in these stories. And so, but she's in a position where her father gets seriously ill, and she needs to step out and do some things that she never thought she would have to do. And so, and she meets Jacob, and he becomes her boss. And so this one I really like. It's like, what I liked was the idea that when you have life's uncertainties, it gives God the possibilities of working through those things and to show his gracious love. So,
And book three is Courageous Love.
yes. So this one, there was a side character named Susan, and she ends up in some trouble and meets Preston, who's a lawyer, but her heart is to help women, vulnerable women. And so the story is how she goes through and does that. And both she and Preston, though, in this journey, they need to find the courage to live their convictions, to find who they are in God, and to be able to be the people that they were created to be. So.
And all three are available on Amazon. And do you have a favorite of the three?
I like them all, but I guess I tend towards Gracious Love.
The second one.
Yeah, the second one. Yeah, it's just maybe because it flowed together so nicely, and I just saw different instances of God's grace in the story and in my life at that time too.
So, as a writer, each of your novellas went through several rounds of revisions. So, what did you learn most about the editing process?
It's very important. There are just things as authors, when we're writing, we just don't see it. We need other eyes on our work. And even after I would read and edit and do it again, there would be things I just wouldn't catch, and or something, you can end up with something that's just hanging out there where you didn't bring resolution to it or something. And so I really appreciate other people being able to have that input and to help me be a better writer. That's really what it comes down to. And if you're going to put your work out there. I mean, if God's put this call on your heart and your life, you want it to be the best you can be. And you want to get it out there for people to read and to be encouraged by. And so it's not going to happen if you hold it too closely. So
now, do we want to talk about her third book had a title change? Now, when you sign a contract with the publisher, you have to put working titles of what they're going to be. Sometimes you can change the title, the publisher can change the title, but she had already contracted specific titles which lead to each of the themes in her books. And the third one had a different title. And do you want to talk about why we needed to change it?
Yeah. So originally the third book was called Sacrificial Love, and I thought I would be able to write to that theme. That's number one. Don't do that. Don't name your book a title that is the theme. So anyway, it's one of the reasons that I had a struggle with that story, is because I was trying to make it sacrificial, and it was really courage.
Right. It had, she had me read it, and I was afraid to call her up. And I'm thinking, Jeri, this book has nothing to do with sacrificial love. It's not about sacrifice at all. It's about the characters gaining the courage. And I was so afraid to tell her, but then I was like, I talked to her about it, and she's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And so we then had to contact the publisher, right?
Mm-hmm,
and
right.
say, this is not the story, not the title that's going to work for this particular
Mm-hmm.
story. And they, of course, agreed to change it to Courageous Love, which absolutely fits the story now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I recommend don't write yourself into a corner trying to write to a theme. Usually, as you're writing, the theme will just naturally come out. It'll come out, maybe you won't even know what it is until you're writing like halfway through the book. It comes from inside us. It comes from who we are and our experiences, and it just naturally flows, I guess, out of our subconscious. And so if you're just starting out, just don't title after a theme. Write the story first and then give it a title and see what theme came out during the course of this story, and then you can go back in the revision process and you can strengthen those themes and bring them out stronger, but the first thing is to just get the story down. That's the first step, but titles can absolutely be changed. And so it's best before the publisher puts it up on Amazon as a placeholder. But that's a very interesting thing that that happened out of that. So what have you learned about the publishing industry or the marketing that you had to do that you didn't know before? Because now you've had to do a different kind of marketing.
The publishing world, it changes, and it changes all the time. And so there's a lot to learn about that. At conferences, there's large publishing houses and smaller presses represented. And most people want to go with the larger house. But now what's happened is they're kind of like pulling back, and they're keeping their current authors, and they're not really signing on very many new authors. And so
they do, but not on a wide scale.
Right, right. So if you're just getting started, there is probably more openness in the smaller presses.
More opportunity.
Yeah. So, and not a vanity press, not somebody that you're going to have to pay.
Yeah, you don't want to pay them. They need to be paying you.
Right, right. So anyway, but right now that's a comfortable place for me to be, is with a smaller press. But regardless of how you do this, whether it's the larger houses, a smaller press, or even self-publishing, you're going to have to do the marketing.
Right. And everyone does their marketing. The publishing houses do not do it for you. You need to be able to have marketing skills, social media, You might want to create ads, go on hire book tour companies to help you go on blog tours. But you really have to learn the business side of writing in addition to the writing craft.
So you need a Facebook author page, not just your personal page. You need to be on Goodreads. BookBub, I think, is good, and I'm still learning that one, but that's a place for authors and readers, and they can do some good things, and they have ads too. Amazon has ads, and so does Facebook. But the rules always seem to be changing.
And there's always new platforms coming out,
right,
and there's always new opportunities. And so a really good thing is to join writer groups, online and in person, and talk to them about marketing. Lots of authors sometimes join together for joint promotional posts. I know Jeri was part of one, right? Where she met others through the BookBub, was it?
It was actually other authors through Winged Publications.
Through Winged Publications.
One of the authors had learned a way to do this certain kind of ad thing, and so I joined. $10 got me about 200 followers on BookBub, so that was very worth it.
Right. So there's always new ideas and new promotional tactics that you can learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, okay, how has an author led you to do more public speaking, or stepping up to be a co-leader of a writing group and do public events? Did you ever think you would be doing these things?
My idea of writing was kind of like Jane Austen, off in your little room in the corner and writing about things and not having to do this. I remember being at a writers conference and having some of the presenters talk about that you're going to have to do public speaking. And I thought, that's right up there with going to the dentist. I mean, it's just not a favorite thing. But as I've done different things, it's become easier, and I realized that if I'm speaking something I'm passionate about, then I can do it. Then I can get over that hump. And so I have talked at a readers group, and a couple of us were actually at a Christmas festival. And they actually let us have the stage where we took turns with the microphone and talking about our stories and stuff. And that was for the Christmas of Hope anthology. And that was kind of fun and an interesting thing to have happen. And so, and I have done some teaching at our local group, and mostly about getting published through magazines and articles, because I did that first, and that was a good way to learn to write tight and how to work with publishers, and those were good experiences. And don't overlook those markets, because they reach thousands of people.
And it gives you credits, writing credits.
Yes, and that did make a difference when I would go to talk to an agent or an editor and say, I've been published with the Bible Advocate and with Brio magazine, and it's just like, oh, okay, because that shows that I can write.
So what is your writing schedule like? When do you write? Do you use a planner or block out time, or how do you plan out your week?
So my best time to write is in the morning. I'm more of a morning person, and more ideas. I'm just fresher usually. And so I do use a planner, but it's really basic. It's like a 2-year calendar that's, you just open it up and it has larger size blocks to write in. And so I can look at that and determine, what days of the week I can write. And as I'm writing a story, I will go through and I will say how much time I spent on that day. And when I get to the end of the week, then on the side, there's these lines where I will fill in like how many hours I wrote that week.
I do that too.
And so then when I had the deadlines, I was looking ahead and figuring out how many words a week I was going to have to write in order to get it done. And then I had to shorten it because I needed also then the time for someone else to edit it and, rewrites and all that. So, but it is helpful and it's simple. That's a simple tool. So I really like that.
Okay.
So,
and where do you write? Where is your office, or what does your writing space look like?
so I'm kind of a traveling writer.
You have a suitcase or
Almost. I have a small table that sits between the kitchen and the dining room. And so if I'm busy, like something's on the stove and cooking and I can't be further away, I'm sitting there and I can write, and I can usually block out a lot of the noise around me. I'll have the laundry going, whatever. And I do tend to get up and move around quite often. I've had some back stuff because of car accidents. And so I try to get up about every 30 minutes and move around. But I will say sometimes I go into a zone and, I'm not going to move. So anyway, so I sit there or I sit at the kitchen table. My, being comfortable for, physically having my arms at the right level, the kitchen table's actually better. And then I have an office. I have a bedroom that I converted to an office, and so I also use that. So it just kind of depends. If family is coming and going a little too chatty, I definitely go to the office. And I've got a big whiteboard in there, which is really great because I've used that for different things, for planning and stuff. So
I joke about having the suitcase, but actually, I do that. It's like if I have a writing office also, but I don't often actually write there. I keep my writing things there, but I like to move around too. I'll be at the dining room table because the sliding glass doors are right there, and I like all the light coming in, and I can look outside. And in the summertime, I like to be able to take my writing outside, and I'll have an extension cord, and I'll be at the picnic table or umbrella table. And I actually do have like either a bag or a briefcase or a suitcase type thing where I keep everything that pertains to that story in it, like pens, sticky notes, index cards, all my files. And I will like pack up my writing and take it from one place to another. And it's an easy way to move it, So, wherever it is best for you, it's... That's great.
I do have a favorite coffee shop too. I drink tea, not coffee, but Austin Chase is a place that is just like about 10 minutes from our house, and
right.
So I've done a lot of writing there too, and so that's been a nice getaway.
So what are you working on now? Any ideas for your next upcoming project?
Well, yeah, I have lots of ideas. It's a matter of
time to
write them and fleshing them out, seeing which ones have the best potential for a full story. And so from the background, the research I did on Seattle and its founding, I've got some different time frames that I would like to pursue some stories in those. So, but that's all I'm going to say on that.
So any last writing advice for aspiring writers and anyone watching our channel?
I would just say, if God has placed writing on your heart, do it. Just, even if you don't have a lot of time, you do have time. We all have the same amount of time, and I didn't start writing until, I don't know, after my kids were out of school and stuff. And it's not too late. It's not too late. I think the average age of a writer getting started is somewhere in their 50s. So, if you're younger than that, then you're ahead of the curve, and it still doesn't matter because it's something that you'll just be so happy that you did it. There's a contentment,
I was just reading a book yesterday, and one of the things I read in it was no one has the time to write. No one. There is never a good time. It's never the perfect timing. You just have to pick one day and just start and just do it. Life happens, and unexpected event after unexpected event will happen. and your schedule will get crowded. It'll be filled. You have to, if writing is important to you, you need to make the time to do it. Get up an hour earlier, stay up an hour later. Make an appointment on your calendar that for at least 15 minutes a day I'm going to write. And even 15-minute blocks of time add up, and soon you'll have a finished manuscript.
Yeah.
So there's never the perfect timing. You just have to have the passion and the drive and the commitment and say, I'm going to do this.
And to network with other writers, I think is so important, because we all need that encouragement.
We need the support system
and
an accountability partner. That's why it's so great to join writing groups and go to writing conferences and meet other writers. You need a partner where you can talk to and keep you accountable.
Partner in crime.
Well, thank you for being here today.
Okay, thank you. It's been a privilege.
I hope you've enjoyed our interview today and learned a few things about writing. And if you can hit like and subscribe to our channel, you can get more interviews and more information. And there's a whole bunch of blog posts on how to write on our website, aspiringwriteracademy.com.